Lost Gospel of Eve, what they never told you about her story. In the beginning, the cosmos was a vast and silent void, a blank canvas awaiting the touch of divine hands. From this emptiness emerged the universe, vibrant and alive, created in stages over 6 days according to the biblical account. It was on the 6th day that God formed humanity, crowning creation with Adam and Eva. These two beings were not mere biological entities, they were the bearers of God's image, endowed with the ability to think, feel, and create. Eva's arrival in this narrative is both profound and symbolic. The Bible describes her as being fashioned from Adam's rib, a detail that has sparked centuries of debate and interpretation. Was this meant to signify her subordination, as many traditional interpretations suggest, or rather her integral and equal partnership with Adam? Her name, derived from the Hebrew word chava, means to live, marking her as the source of life and the mother of all humanity. In her essence, Eva was life itself, a creation of beauty, complexity, and purpose. Their home was the Garden of Eden, a paradise filled with every imaginable delight. It was a place of abundance, where rivers flowed with crystal clarity, animals roamed peacefully, and fruit trees offered nourishment. At the heart of the garden stood two mysterious trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The former promised eternal life, while the latter carried the weight of divine restriction. God's command to Adam and Eva was clear and unequivocal. You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Yet, paradise was not without its challenges. The narrative introduces the serpent, a creature described as more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. Jinn. The serpent's dialogue with Eva is one of the most compelling and controversial moments in Scripture. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? The serpent asked, planting the seed of doubt. Eva's response revealed her understanding of the command, but the serpent's cunning reply, "You will not certainly die," introduced an alternative narrative. According to the serpent, eating the forbidden fruit would grant them divine knowledge, opening their eyes to the realities of good and evil. The allure of forbidden wisdom proved too strong to resist. Eva took the fruit and ate, and then offered it to Adam, who also ate. In that moment, their innocence was shattered. The text says, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." For the first time, they experienced shame, a powerful emotion that marked the beginning of human self-awareness and separation from divine perfection. When God walked in the garden and called out to them, Adam and Eva hid. This act of concealment, born from guilt, led to their confrontation with God. In a series of pointed questions, God unraveled the truth. Adam blamed Eva. "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Eva, in turn, blamed the serpent. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The blame game did not absolve them of their choices. God's judgment was swift and far-reaching. The serpent was cursed to crawl on its belly and eat dust. Eva was condemned to painful childbirth, and Adam was destined to toil the earth for survival. Finally, both were exiled from Eden, their perfect home, and barred from accessing the tree of life. This account, often referred to as the fall of man, has shaped centuries of theological thought. Eva, in particular, has been cast as the archetype of temptation and disobedience, bearing the brunt of humanity's fall from grace. But is this interpretation fair? Was Eva truly the villain of this story, or has her role been misunderstood and oversimplified? To understand Eva fully, one must consider the symbolic richness of the narrative. The serpent, for example, is not just a cunning creature, but a symbol that carries various meanings across cultures. In some traditions, serpents represent wisdom, transformation, and healing. Could it be that Eva's interaction with the serpent was not a moment of rebellion, but a pursuit of growth and understanding? The fruit itself is another symbol shrouded in mystery. Often depicted as an apple, it is more accurately understood as the fruit of knowledge, representing the complex and often painful journey from innocence to awareness. Some scholars argue that Eva's actions reflect the human condition itself, the eternal struggle between obedience and curiosity, safety and growth, comfort and risk. By choosing to eat the fruit, Eva embraced the unknown, an act that, while costly, also set humanity on a path towards self-awareness and moral responsibility. In this light, her actions can be seen not as a fall, but as a necessary step in humanity's evolution. Moreover, the relational dynamics in the story are telling. Adam and Eva's partnership, their shared guilt, and their mutual expulsion from Eden highlight the interconnectedness of their fates. This shared responsibility challenges the narrative that places the burden solely on Eva. Instead, it invites readers to see her as a complex figure, one who embodies both the vulnerabilities and the strengths of humanity. As this chapter draws to a close, Eva emerges as a multifaceted character. She is not merely the mother of all living or the scapegoat for humanity's flaws. She is a symbol of choice, consequence, and the pursuit of wisdom. Her story, far from being a simple tale of disobedience, is a profound exploration of what it means to be human. In the chapters that follow, we will delve deeper into alternative interpretations of Eva's story, uncovering the layers of meaning that have been obscured over millennia. Entendido. Vou reescrever o capítulo, ajustando para garantir que ele tenha 1000 palavras e que a transição seja fluida e natural, sem explicações desnecessárias ao final. Segue o novo texto. Over the centuries, Eva's story has taken on countless interpretations, each reflecting the prevailing ideologies of its time. From early theological doctrines to modern feminist readings, her narrative has shifted, exposing the biases and agendas of those who wielded her tale as a tool for influence. What emerges is a complex figure, far removed from the simplistic characterization of a woman whose single act condemned humanity. In early Judeo-Christian traditions, Eva's disobedience became a foundational justification for male-dominated society. Religious leaders emphasized her culpability in the so-called fall of man, painting her as the origin of sin and suffering. The consequences of this narrative were monumental. Women, modeled after Eva's perceived flaws, were cast as inherently weaker, more prone to temptation, and in need of guidance and control. This perspective permeated both religious and secular life, effectively silencing women's voices and barring them from positions of leadership. Yet this was not the only version of Eva's story. In certain apocryphal texts, Eva is portrayed as a seeker of knowledge and enlightenment. Gnostic writings, such as the Hypostasis of the Archons, depict her not as a deceiver or sinner, but as a figure of wisdom. In this alternate account, the serpent is not a villain, but a symbol of liberation, guiding Eva toward forbidden knowledge that empowers her, and by extension, humanity. Here her act is seen not as a fall, but as a step toward self-awareness and freedom from ignorance. These contrasting depictions reveal the malleability of Eva's story and how it has been reshaped to suit varying ideological needs. As Christianity spread across Europe, Eva's image continued to evolve. Medieval theologians and artists, deeply influenced by patriarchal systems, reinforced her role as a cautionary tale. Stained glass windows in cathedrals depicted her moment of disobedience, often highlighting her supposed vanity and weakness. These visual portrayals were potent reminders of the consequences of stepping outside established boundaries. However, not all medieval interpretations were entirely damning. Certain works of art, particularly in the later Renaissance period, began to emphasize her humanity. Painters such as Albrecht Dürer presented Eva not merely as a sinner, but as a figure of beauty and complexity, hinting at the internal conflict she might have faced. Beyond theology and art, Eva's narrative influenced societal norms. Her story was invoked to justify the subjugation of women, embedding itself in legal, political, and cultural frameworks. The notion that women were inherently less rational, more emotional, and prone to moral failings found its roots in interpretations of Eva's character. This perspective endured for centuries, shaping gender roles and limiting women's opportunities in virtually every sphere of life. However, the tide began to turn with the advent of modern feminist thought. By the 19th and 20th centuries, Eva's story was revisited with fresh eyes. Scholars and theologians began questioning the motivations behind her traditional portrayal. Why was her curiosity and quest for knowledge framed as a sin? Why was Adam's passive complicity often overlooked? These inquiries sparked a reimagining of Eva, not as a cautionary figure, but as a symbol of defiance against unjust authority. Her choice to eat the forbidden fruit became a metaphor for the human desire to break free from imposed ignorance. In literature, authors such as John Milton in Paradise Lost offered a more nuanced view of Eva. While Milton's portrayal still adhered to many traditional interpretations, he also imbued her with depth and agency, acknowledging her role as a central figure in humanity's spiritual journey. Later works further explored her potential as a symbol of resilience and empowerment, challenging the narratives that had long defined her. Today, Eva's story continues to resonate, especially in discussions around gender equality and religious reform. Feminist theologians argue that her actions should not be seen as inherently negative, but as a moment of profound agency. In eating the fruit, she chose knowledge over ignorance, action over passivity. This reframing shifts the focus from blame to understanding, encouraging a more compassionate reading of her story. The enduring relevance of Eva's narrative speaks to its universality. She represents the human struggle between obedience and curiosity, security and risk, conformity and independence. Her story invites us to reflect on the ways in which we navigate these tensions in our own lives. It also challenges us to question the narratives we have inherited and to seek deeper truths beyond surface interpretations. As we move forward, it's worth asking, what does Eva's story tell us about ourselves? What does it reveal about the societies that shaped her image? And how might we reclaim her narrative to reflect a more inclusive and equitable understanding of humanity? The story of Eva became one of the most potent tools for justifying patriarchal systems, embedding its influence in religion, culture, and governance for centuries. This chapter delves into how her narrative was weaponized to maintain male-dominated hierarchies and suppress the voices and potential of women. In early Christian theology, Eva's disobedience was presented as the ultimate cautionary tale. Church fathers such as Augustine of Hippo and Tertullian emphasized her guilt, using it to underscore the inherent weakness of women. Tertullian famously referred to women as the devil's gateway, arguing that they were responsible for introducing sin and death into the world. This rhetoric seeped into religious teachings, sermons, and everyday life, where women were viewed as secondary, subservient, and dangerous if left unchecked. As these ideas spread, they shaped societal norms and laws. Women were excluded from positions of power within the church, forbidden from becoming priests or holding leadership roles. The reasoning was clear. If Eva could be deceived by the serpent, how could any woman be trusted to guide others? This ideology was not confined to religion, but extended into secular governance. In many societies, women were denied the right to vote, own property, or make decisions about their own lives. Their autonomy was systematically eroded, all justified by the supposed lessons of Eva's fall. Art and literature played significant roles in reinforcing these stereotypes. In medieval Europe, Eva's story was vividly portrayed in cathedral carvings and paintings, often alongside depictions of hell and damnation. These images served as constant reminders of the dangers of female disobedience. The serpent, often depicted with a woman's face, further conflated femininity with temptation and sin. These visual cues shaped public perception, embedding deep-seated biases that lingered for generations. The story's influence wasn't limited to the Western world. Interpretations of Eva's narrative found echoes in other cultures and religions, where similar themes of female culpability and subjugation emerged. In Islamic tradition, for example, while Adam and Eva are both held accountable for eating the forbidden fruit, cultural practices often lean toward emphasizing Eva's role, mirroring the Christian emphasis on her blame. This overlap highlights the far-reaching impact of patriarchal interpretations of ancient texts. However, even within these oppressive frameworks, alternative readings of Eva's story began to emerge. Mystical and esoteric traditions, such as Kabbalah, offered more nuanced views. In these interpretations, Eva's actions were seen as part of a divine plan. Her choice to eat the fruit a necessary step in humanity's spiritual evolution. These perspectives, while marginalized, provided glimpses of a more balanced understanding of her role. By the Enlightenment era, intellectuals and philosophers began to challenge traditional interpretations of Eva. Thinkers like Mary Wollstonecraft and John Stuart Mill questioned the societal structures that confined women, pointing to the ways religious narratives were used to perpetuate inequality. Their critiques laid the groundwork for the feminist movements that would emerge in the 19th and 20th centuries. Feminist theologians in particular have been instrumental in re-examining Eva's story. Scholars like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Phyllis Tribal argued that the traditional reading of Eva as a villain was not only flawed, but harmful. They pointed out inconsistencies in the narrative, such as Adam's equal participation in eating the fruit and his failure to take responsibility. These reinterpretations sought to reclaim Eva's legacy, presenting her not as a cautionary tale, but as a figure of empowerment and agency. The modern era has seen a significant shift in how Eva's story is perceived. With the rise of gender equality movements and increasing scrutiny of religious institutions, the narrative of Eva is being re-examined through a critical lens. Popular culture, too, has played a role in reshaping her image. Films, novels, and art now often portray Eva as a complex, multifaceted character, rather than a one-dimensional symbol of sin. This evolving understanding of Eva's story reflects broader societal changes. As women continue to fight for equality and representation, revisiting the narratives that have historically justified their oppression becomes crucial. Eva's tale, once a weapon of patriarchy, now serves as a reminder of the resilience and strength required to challenge and change deeply ingrained systems. Throughout history, Eva's story has been shaped and reshaped, often molded to fit the dominant narratives of the time. Yet, beneath the surface of these traditional teachings lies a hidden tapestry of interpretations, alternative perspectives that challenge the widely accepted view of Eva as the root of humanity's downfall. These voices, long suppressed or overlooked, offer a radically different understanding of her role, portraying her not as a figure of shame, but as one of courage, wisdom, and defiance against ignorance. One of the most intriguing alternative interpretations of Eva comes from the Gnostic texts, particularly the Apocryphon of John and the Gospel of Philip. In these writings, Eva is not vilified as the bringer of sin, but revered as a symbol of divine enlightenment. The serpent, traditionally seen as the embodiment of evil, is reinterpreted as an emissary of Sophia, the personification of divine wisdom in Gnostic theology. According to these texts, the fruit of the tree of knowledge was not a forbidden trap, but a gift, a key to unlocking humanity's potential. In this light, Eva's decision to eat the fruit becomes an act of bravery and insight, a deliberate choice to seek knowledge and liberate humanity from the bonds of ignorance imposed by a controlling deity. This alternative view of Eva's role found support among early Christian sects like the Valentinians and the Sethians, who celebrated her as an archetype of spiritual awakening. They saw her as a guide who defied oppressive structures to pave the way for humanity's spiritual evolution. However, these interpretations posed a direct challenge to the orthodoxy of the time, which sought to maintain strict hierarchical control over religious teachings. As a result, Gnostic texts were declared heretical and their adherents were persecuted, forcing these alternative narratives into the shadows. Despite the suppression of these perspectives, echoes of them resurfaced in various forms throughout history. During the medieval period, mystics such as Hildegard of Bingen and Marguerite Porete subtly challenged the dominant interpretation of Eva. While their writings often avoided direct confrontation with church dogma, they hinted at a deeper understanding of Eva's role as a seeker of divine truth. Hildegard's visions, for example, celebrated the pursuit of wisdom and the balance between knowledge and faith, themes that resonate with Gnostic ideas about Eva. Similarly, Marguerite Porete's The Mirror of Simple Souls emphasized the importance of inner spiritual awakening, a concept that aligns with the idea of Eva as a liberator rather than a sinner. The Renaissance brought a renewed interest in re-examining biblical narratives, including the story of Eva. Artists and thinkers of the time began to challenge traditional portrayals, presenting her with complexity and depth. Michelangelo's depiction of Eva on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, for instance, conveys a sense of dignity and grace, suggesting a more nuanced view of her character. This shift in artistic representation reflected broader changes in how people approached religious and historical narratives, paving the way for future reinterpretations. In the modern era, feminist theologians and scholars have taken up the mantle of rediscovering and amplifying these alternative voices. Writers like Phyllis Treibel and Elaine Pagels have argued that Eva's story was deliberately distorted to serve patriarchal agendas. Treibel, in particular, has highlighted the inconsistencies in the traditional narrative, such as Adam's equal participation in eating the fruit and his failure to take responsibility. These scholars have sought to reclaim Eva's legacy, presenting her not as a cautionary tale, but as a figure of empowerment and agency. This reinterpretation of Eva's story has extended beyond academia into popular culture. Films, novels, and other forms of media have explored her story from fresh perspectives, challenging audiences to question long-held assumptions. In Margaret Atwood's The Year of the Flood, for instance, Eva's tale is reimagined as a parable of ecological and spiritual awakening, resonating with contemporary concerns about humanity's relationship with the natural world. Similarly, modern artists have revisited the imagery of Eva, depicting her as a symbol of resistance and resilience. The impact of these reinterpretations is profound. By reframing Eva's story, we not only challenge the narratives that have justified inequality for centuries, but also open the door to a richer, more inclusive understanding of human history. Her story becomes a mirror, reflecting the struggles and aspirations of those who have been marginalized or silenced. It invites us to question the origins of the beliefs and structures that shape our world today. As we delve deeper into these forgotten voices, we must confront uncomfortable questions. What other narratives have been manipulated or suppressed to serve specific agendas? If Eva's story can be reimagined, what other tales might hold hidden truths waiting to be uncovered? These questions remind us that history is not a fixed script, but a living dialogue, a conversation that evolves as we uncover new perspectives and challenge old assumptions. In this evolving dialogue, Eva's story stands as a powerful example of how reinterpretation can lead to liberation. By reclaiming her narrative, we not only honor the forgotten voices of the past, but also empower ourselves to question, explore, and redefine the stories that shape our collective identity. Ava's journey, once framed as a fall from grace, now serves as a testament to the enduring human spirit and the quest for truth. The story of Eve transcends the bounds of biblical text and ventures into the realm of mythology, philosophy, and cultural symbolism. Her narrative, woven with elements of choice, consequence, and knowledge, has served as a cornerstone for religious teachings, philosophical inquiries, and even political structures throughout history. But as we examine her story through the lens of comparative mythology, it becomes clear that Eve's tale is part of a broader pattern, connecting her to similar archetypes across diverse cultures. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, parallels to Eve's story emerge in the figure of Ninhursag, the Sumerian goddess associated with creation, fertility, and life. One particularly striking narrative involves Enki, the god of wisdom, consuming forbidden plants in the paradise of Dilmun. To restore balance, Ninhursag curses Enki and later provides healing by creating life from his ailing body. The echoes of a paradise, forbidden knowledge, and healing suggest a shared cultural motif that predates the Genesis account. Could Eve's story have roots in these earlier myths, reshaped and adapted by the Hebrew authors? Moving westward, we find intriguing similarities in Greek mythology. Pandora, often considered a parallel to Eve, is another figure burdened with the blame for humanity's suffering. Given a jar, later misinterpreted as a box, containing all the evils of the world, Pandora's curiosity leads her to open it, unleashing hardship upon humanity. Yet like Eve, Pandora's story is not as simple as a tale of disobedience. Her curiosity, often portrayed as a flaw, can also be seen as a reflection of humanity's drive to seek answers and explore the unknown. Both Eve and Pandora symbolize the tension between ignorance and enlightenment, obedience and freedom. These parallels raise important questions. Did the authors of Genesis draw inspiration from existing mythological traditions, blending them with their theological vision? Or are these archetypes so universal that they naturally appear across cultures, reflecting shared human experiences? While definitive answers may remain elusive, the connections between Eve and her mythological counterparts highlight the universality of her story. The reinterpretation of Eve's narrative in religious and cultural contexts often hinges on these broader connections. During the Enlightenment, philosophers and thinkers began to see Eve as a symbol of intellectual freedom. John Milton's Paradise Lost, for example, portrays Eve with a level of complexity and nuance rarely found in earlier Christian texts. Though still depicted as a figure whose actions lead to humanity's fall, Milton's Eve is also thoughtful, reflective, and deeply human. She grapples with questions of identity, autonomy, and her relationship to Adam and God, making her a multidimensional character rather than a one-dimensional scapegoat. These shifting interpretations reflect the cultural and political concerns of their time. In the 19th and 20th centuries, feminist theologians and scholars revisited Eve's story, reclaiming her as a figure of resistance and empowerment. Her decision to eat the fruit was reframed not as an act of rebellion, but as a courageous choice to seek knowledge and assert agency. For many, Eve became a symbol of the struggle against oppression, whether it stemmed from religious dogma, patriarchal systems, or societal norms. Beyond the Western tradition, Eve's archetype resonates with figures in other spiritual contexts. In Hinduism, for example, the story of Maya, the goddess of illusion, explores themes of knowledge, reality, and the human condition. Though distinct from Eve's narrative, Maya's role as a mediator between divine and earthly realms offers another lens through which to understand Eve's significance. Both figures highlight the complexities of existence, the pursuit of truth, and the interplay between divine will and human choice. As we explore these connections, it becomes clear that Eve's story is far more than a cautionary tale about sin and punishment. It is a narrative rich with layers of meaning, reflecting humanity's deepest fears, desires, and aspirations. Her story challenges us to confront difficult questions. What does it mean to seek knowledge? What are the consequences of challenging authority? And how do we reconcile the tension between obedience and freedom? Eve's enduring relevance lies in her ability to adapt to the cultural, religious, and philosophical concerns of each era. From her origins in ancient myths to her role in modern feminist theology, she continues to inspire debate and reflection. Her story reminds us that the quest for understanding, though fraught with challenges and consequences, is an essential part of the human experience. Eve's story has long been a cornerstone for understanding the relationship between women, knowledge, and power within religious contexts. Yet over the centuries, her narrative has undergone dramatic reinterpretations, particularly within feminist theology and modern intellectual discourse. These evolving perspectives highlight the enduring significance of Eve's legacy and its impact on contemporary thought. For centuries, Eve's role as the archetypal woman has been used to justify patriarchal systems. Her perceived disobedience and association with sin became the foundation for excluding women from positions of power in religious and societal structures. Early church fathers like Tertullian and Augustine interpreted Eve's actions as evidence of women's inherent weakness, further entrenching the idea that women were subordinate to men. This theological framework not only shaped religious practices, but also influenced broader cultural attitudes, reinforcing the notion of women as temptresses and bearers of guilt. However, beginning in the 19th and 20th centuries, feminist scholars and theologians began to challenge these interpretations. They argued that traditional readings of Eve's story overlooked the complexity of her character and the broader implications of her choices. For many, Eve's decision to eat the forbidden fruit was reframed as an act of courage and agency, a rejection of blind obedience and a pursuit of knowledge. This reinterpretation positioned Eve not as a symbol of sin, but as a figure of empowerment. One of the most influential voices in this movement was theologian Phyllis Trible, whose work, God and the Rhetoric of Sexuality, offered a groundbreaking analysis of biblical texts from a feminist perspective. Trible argued that Eve's story, when stripped of patriarchal biases, revealed a nuanced and egalitarian relationship between Adam and Eve. She emphasized that the Hebrew text of Genesis described them as equal partners, both created in the image of God. According to Trible, the fall narrative was not about Eve's inferiority, but about the consequences of human choices and the complexities of free will. This reinterpretation of Eve's story has had profound implications for contemporary debates about gender roles in religion and society. In many ways, Eve has become a symbol of resistance against systems that seek to suppress women's voices. Her narrative challenges us to reconsider traditional notions of authority, obedience, and morality, offering a lens through which to critique patriarchal structures and advocate for equality. Beyond feminist theology, Eve's story has resonated with broader movements for social justice and human rights. Her quest for knowledge and the consequences of her actions reflect universal themes of struggle, growth, and resilience. For many, Eve represents the human condition itself, the tension between curiosity and consequence, autonomy and accountability. Her story reminds us that the pursuit of understanding often comes at a cost, but it is a cost worth bearing for the sake of progress. In literature and art, Eve's legacy continues to inspire new interpretations. From John Milton's Paradise Lost to modern novels and films, her story has been reimagined in ways that explore the complexities of her character and the enduring relevance of her choices. These creative works often highlight Eve's humanity, portraying her as a figure who grapples with the same questions and challenges that define the human experience. Perhaps one of the most significant aspects of Eve's legacy is her ability to spark dialogue and debate. Her story invites us to question established beliefs, examine our assumptions, and explore alternative perspectives. Whether we view her as a symbol of rebellion, empowerment, or human frailty, Eve challenges us to think critically about the narratives we inherit and the values they reflect. As we reflect on Eve's enduring impact, we are reminded that her story is far from static. It evolves with each generation, shaped by new insights and changing cultural contexts. This adaptability is a testament to the power of storytelling and the importance of revisiting our shared narratives to uncover deeper truths. With this understanding of Eve's legacy, we turn to a broader question. How has the reinterpretation of her story influenced the way we approach other biblical narratives? And what does this tell us about the role of storytelling in shaping our understanding of faith, identity, and the human condition? As we reach the culmination of Eve's narrative journey, it becomes clear that her story is not just a relic of the past, but a living, breathing part of how humanity continues to understand itself. In this final chapter, we explore how reclaiming Eve's story can serve as a powerful symbol for the future, one that embodies the strength of human curiosity, resilience, and the transformative power of new perspectives. Eve's portrayal as a sinner, temptress, or even scapegoat has had far-reaching consequences, but it also presents an opportunity for reimagination. As modern societies wrestle with questions of equality, individual autonomy, and collective progress, Eve's legacy offers lessons that are more relevant than ever. By examining how her story has been manipulated to support specific ideologies, we can begin to dismantle the structures that perpetuate inequality and exclusion. In feminist theology, Eve is no longer simply a warning about the dangers of disobedience, but a call to action. Her story invites women to question inherited traditions, reclaim agency, and challenge the narratives that have silenced their voices for centuries. Movements for gender equality within religious institutions have found inspiration in Eve's quest for knowledge. For them, Eve is not a symbol of shame, but of courage. The courage to seek understanding even when it comes with profound consequences. Beyond gender, Eve's story speaks to the broader human condition. Her decision to eat the forbidden fruit symbolizes the innate desire to transcend limitations, to question authority, and to chart one's own path. These qualities are not exclusive to any single group, but are part of what makes us human. Eve reminds us that progress often comes from those who dare to defy convention and push beyond the boundaries of what is considered acceptable. In contemporary discussions of environmental ethics and stewardship, Eve's connection to the Garden of Eden offers a poignant reminder of humanity's relationship with the natural world. The garden, once a paradise, became a site of exile due to human choices. This aspect of the story has been reinterpreted as a metaphor for the consequences of environmental neglect and the need for restoration. In this context, Eve becomes a symbol of the interconnectedness between humanity and the earth, a call to protect and nurture the world we inhabit. Art and literature continue to play a crucial role in reclaiming Eve's story for the future. In modern retellings, she is often portrayed as a multi-dimensional character whose complexity mirrors our own struggles and aspirations. These works challenge us to see Eve not through the lens of judgment but through empathy, as someone who embodies both the flaws and potential of humanity. As societies become more inclusive, there is a growing recognition of the need to revisit traditional narratives and examine their impact on marginalized communities. Eve's story serves as a reminder of how powerful storytelling can be in shaping cultural norms and values. By reclaiming her narrative, we open the door to new possibilities that celebrate diversity, promote equity, and foster a deeper understanding of the human experience. Ultimately, Eve's legacy invites us to ask fundamental questions about who we are and who we aspire to be. What does it mean to seek knowledge? How do we balance the pursuit of individual freedom with collective responsibility? And how can we use the stories of the past to create a more just and compassionate future? As we close this exploration of Eve's lost gospel, we are left with a profound sense of the enduring power of her story. Far from being a tale of failure, Eve's journey is one of resilience and transformation. It challenges us to rethink our assumptions, embrace complexity, and find meaning in the struggle for growth and understanding. Eve's story, like humanity itself, is unfinished. It continues to evolve, shaped by new voices and fresh perspectives. And in that evolution lies the hope for a future where all stories, no matter how hidden or forgotten, can be heard, understood, and celebrated.